You're welcome back. And of course, on a day like this, we try to do as special a show as possible. So I'm particularly excited about our next two guests. Could always do with a few more women in media, a few more stories about women in the media, and an organization that is trying to make that happen is ALMA, the Alliance for Women in Media in Africa. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, got it right, yeah. And ALMA has been one of the very prominent CSOs in this particular space here in Ghana since its convener, Shamima Muslim Al-Hassan, got things started. She's here with us today to tell us why she is collaborating, or ALMA is collaborating with thought leadership at Joy FM to bring us a very special event to commemorate International Women's Day. Shamima, how nice to see you.
Same here. It's been a while.
It has, hasn't it?
Yeah,
You've been evading me.
Independence anniversary as well.
Same to you.
Good to be here.
And Nick, how great to see you.
Good to see you, Kojo. Thanks for having us.
Indeed. And Nick's my neighbor. I almost never see him. Busy man, busy man. Nick, I guess I'll start with you. This is a collaboration that makes sense, but I'm wondering how it all came to be and why Joy FM felt it was important to be associated with this event.
Well, Kojo, thanks once again, and happy Independence Day to you. I think one thing that we can all agree on is the fact that since independence, women have and continue to play significant roles in terms of the holistic development of this country. One thing that we also can agree on is that over the period there's been a significant prevalence of violence against women, and we think that on International Women's Day this year we should focus our attention to teasing out and ventilating some of the issues that have come up over the years to get policymakers to address this phenomenon. We thought we could collaborate with ALMA because they've been in this space, promoting women in media, educating women, advocating for women empowerment, and so we think that this collaboration is worth pursuing. So they've come on board to help us bring to you this Women's Summit that's happening later next week.
Excellent.
This week, actually.
This week.
Tomorrow.
That's right. And this is all in recognition of International Women's Day.
Yes.
So this year, the theme revolves around violence against women. Tell us a little bit more about it and how ALMA is plugging into that.
Right. Okay. So every year on the 8th of March, it's a dedicated day globally to celebrating the achievements of women worldwide, but also to introduce a call to action for all groups all over the world to plug in and execute their own independent campaigns in their local context. So it is to raise issues that women the world over face. So this year, last year was Press for Progress, and for the past couple of years, the entire goal is seeking gender equality in the boardrooms where we have at least fair representation of both males and females all doing well, equal opportunities for growth and advancement, equality in our workplaces where you come into a work environment and you see a fair representation of both men and women all having equal opportunities to thrive and feel safe in that workplace, and equality in politics, really, because this is where the decisions are taking, and we'll come to when we are speaking about the themes and why we selected that to make a justification for that. So this year the global theme is balance for better. And really, this is how we do it. So everybody should do balance for better, balance for better.
Well,
and we're saying that, indeed, yes. And everyone is supposed to do their balance for better post and then share on social media. Okay. And the message is simple. The better the balance, the better the world. Because the world is made up of different people. And if we have a fair representation of an inclusive society, it is better for business, it is better for progress and advancement of our society. So that is the global theme. And all grassroots organizations and governments are expected to carry out events on the day to highlight specific issues that their women in the country face. So that's how come we have chosen for us and for this Women's Summit, the theme, shaping a balanced future free of violence against women.
Right.
And we're going to be having 2 panels, and we'll be talking about that pretty shortly.
Yes, in fact, we'll learn a bit more about that from Nick in a moment. But I wanted to ask you, and we'll learn about Alma as well in a bit. But this has been on my mind since I learned you were coming today. Look, science has proved how important it is to include women in anything that you're doing. I mean, it's clear. Organizations that have more women in leadership positions do better.
Right.
It's science. We
Not everybody agrees, but I'm happy you know.
No, the statistics don't lie. But the question I want to ask is it working? All the effort that organizations like yours are putting into this struggle, is it working? We still see far too few numbers of women in parliament, in leadership, in science and technology, in all the places where we need them. We're not seeing them. So, yeah, is it working?
In fact, that's one of the things we're exploring in the summit. The question, where are the women? They are there, Kojo. They are very there, and it is working. We haven't made the progress that we anticipated we should be making, and we're being told that at this rate, parity would be achieved in another 170 years, despite the gains we make and continue to make. I would say that we haven't told the story better as well. I mean, if you come to Ghana, we know that the informal economy is driven by women, but they are mostly, tabletop entrepreneurs. So there was a MasterCard Foundation report that said that Ghana had the most female entrepreneurs globally. And yes, we came even before, Russia. But of course, there's a place for statistics, and we can interrogate that. What kinds of business are these women running? And it's really the tabletop. I mean, I went back to Volta Hall after several years, and there's this lady that used to sell bananas and oranges, fruits, at the car park. So I get off my car and she runs and gives me a hug. And guess what she was still selling? Oranges and bananas on her pan. And she had seen her children, so I asked about her kids. One had finished a secondary school, one was in a technical school. So these are the women who are breaking their backs. The rural woman who is really the mainstay of our agriculture, but who, as we speak, has no direct access to land. Communal land. If a woman today wants to farm on a communal land, she needs to go to request from the chief through a male arbiter, be it her husband or another male member of her family. And yet they're the majority, farmers. So the inequalities are very glaring. But in the midst of, the gloomy picture comes, spots of great achievements, of great women. And we have at least the advocacy always starts with breaking the glass ceiling in 1 or 2 or 3 of the very important, what I call the levers of power in the economy. And once we're able to break through that mold, at least we can have an example and an aspiration for younger women to now know that it is possible that a woman can do this. And I always say kudos to the banking and the telecommunications industry in Ghana, because it is these industries that have actually seen women rise all the way to the top. In the telecommunications industry today, I think it's majority women, CEOs. We're talking really going all the way to the top, right? In the banking industry, you can count about 5 women heading banks. Abiola is one, Patience is one, and there's 2 or 3 others. But politics, it's been almost like we've played lip service to the issues of women in politics and the political participation of women. So we're asking, where are the women in the politics? Why is it that our president, who's an AU gender champion, will promise 30% female appointment of women in his government, and when an opportunity comes for him to appoint new ministers, of the 13 or so, only 1 female? And they tell you they can't find them, really. And I'm saying that it's either 2 things. Either they're not looking hard enough, or the women don't want to be seen. And if the women don't want to be seen, then it tells something about the way that we're doing our politics, right? And we all need to agree that the country cannot move forward if at the table where decisions are made, from issues of menarche to menopause, the women are not being represented at the table. So we haven't made the transformational gains which is why we have to continue these conversations. It can be very exhausting sometimes, and for a lot of the senior female advocates, there's kind of like a burnout because they've been talking about these issues for decades, and it's like we take one step forward and several steps backwards. But we can't but continue the conversation and the advocacy to ensure that everybody agrees and accepts that, you know, balance is actually better. Because if, Kojo, you have a boy and a girl, for many parents who are willing and able to afford it, they would give these people the same opportunities. Then we flip it and go to those who may be willing but unable to afford giving fair opportunities and equal opportunities to their children. They are there. And those who are able but unwilling because of some cultural dictum that it is really, if you empower a woman, she goes to her husband's place and what have you. But if you're the first category and you make all these investments into your children and they graduate from school and they're all ready for the job market, and your daughter would be asked to trade in sex before she gets an appointment. And now when her competence gets her into the workplace, she's harassed on a daily basis. Repeated requests for dates, requests for sex, sexual coercion. She sometimes faces forced
We're
hugging.
hearing about that in
all of it,
Ford,
you
right?
know.
Yeah.
So would you be happy? So I think that people have to bring the conversation really close home to recognize that this whole thing we're talking about equality and safety at the workplace, it's actually closer than they think, especially also when the home becomes the avenue for some of the injustices to perpetuate. And when we speak about the violence issues, there's 1 in 6 women who will be raped every week, according to DOFC reports, in their last year report. 1 in 6 women will be raped every week, and 1 in 1 man over the same period would be raped every year. And these are statistics that we have to work with. We are not even taking care of all the instances of unreported cases. So there is a problem, and we have to continue the conversation. But most importantly, we need to be demanding specific actions from government through policy, through regulation, and through reinstilling proper family values to allow that families thrive and you know our society
I
thrives.
have one more question for you, but I'll save it for the last minute of our conversation. I want to learn now a bit about the events coming up, and Shamima alluded to some of the detail, but Nick, why don't you walk us through it all?
Right. So after listening so eloquently to Shamima talk about some of these issues, I wonder why anybody wouldn't want to be part of this event. So we have 2 panels. The first panel will be addressing the issue whether gender parity is impossible. And you know, whenever you ask this question, the popular refrain has always been, we cannot find the women, right? So on this panel, Professor Audrey Gajepo, who is the Dean of the School of Communications at the University of Ghana, will be coming from the perspective of the media, why we have some underrepresentation of women in the media. What can we do to address this? Angela Trematin Jimo is the country manager for IBM, and Shamima alluded to the fact that indeed women have broken the glass ceiling in terms of taking up influential positions in the telecom industry. So she'll be addressing that issue and telling us how they were able to do it and what lessons we can also draw from that. Nano Yeletha is a former Minister of Gender, and of course she'll be coming from the perspective of why we do not have a lot of women in politics. Earlier, Shamima alluded to the fact that indeed we've been paying lip service to representation of women in politics, and the statistics are very glaring. Indeed, we have, out of the 275 MPs we have now, only 38 of them. We had 37 until the by-election brought in Lydia Al-Hassan. And out of the about 120 ministers, we have just about 21 or 22 of them being women. And when you look at the MMDCs, it's actually very, very appalling. About 33 out of the 254 mayors we have in Ghana. And so Nano Yeletha will be addressing that and how we can get more women to participate and get involved in politics. On the second panel, on the very first panel too, we have Madam Clara Berry Kasati. She's a legal practitioner and lecturer at the Gimpa Law Faculty. She'll be addressing the issue about women thriving in the field of academia and in other professions. And then on the second panel on the day, we'll be talking about gender-based violence and sexual misconduct in Ghana. Are we safe? Are we thriving? Is there stakeholder commitment? We know there are laws. And yesterday I was going through the Labor Act with Shamima, and we discovered that in terms of sexual harassment, even in the office place, there are remedies available. But are people able to, push for these remedies? When you're sexually harassed by your employer or your co-worker, you can file a complaint with your superiors. If they don't do anything about it, you can go to the Labour Commission. If the Labour Commission doesn't do anything, go to Shraj. Indeed, last year we saw a case in which some women who were working with the fire service were dismissed because they got pregnant on the job. They went to court, and the court awarded them compensation and ordered them ordered their reinstatement. And so these are some of the issues we'll be talking about. On that panel, we have Dr. Angela Jaminal-Boaji. She's with the ACT Foundation. We have Madame Bridget Jobenuku. She's a former vice presidential candidate of the PPP, and then Madame Gifty Anti. So could you, these are the people that will be using for this conversation.
And our own Nino Tedua would join the second panel as well, because we want to assess the psychosocial effects of violence and harassment and unsafe workspaces on the bottom line, on the productivity of the organizations in particular.
Can't think of a better way to use my time. Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
I'm going to be there. But Shamima, I had one question for you in the last 30 seconds. We have, it's got to be 30 seconds. But because of everything you said, it makes me ask, what should the strategy be for organizations like ALMA and all others that are trying to push for gender parity? What should the strategy be? What we've been doing so far is going to take us over 100 years to get there. So what should change? Should we go for the shock and awe thing, like the pepper them sort of
There's a place for that. There's a place for that, and there's a place for showing people the benefits. So we need to tell the stories of the benefits of having a balanced workforce and a balanced society for that matter. We need to continue the pressure on policy, because you see, it always comes back. We have the laws, let's enforce them. So those who are pushing for the Domestic Violence Act, for example, their call to action is that government needs to fund there's a fund that is supposed to be available to deal with victims of violence. It's not been funded ever since the DV Act came into force. How many years ago? So 12 years ago or so. So number one, let's fund the DV Act and the LI to ensure that we protect women. Number two, for me as ALMA, our campaign this year is End Sexual Harassment of Women in Media, because my research that we have done speaking to loads of females in the media is that there is sexual harassment, pervasive culture. So let us end sexual harassment. Let us do sexual harassment trainings for all staff, because I find people don't even know the broad range of things that constitute harassing behaviors. So let us do the trainings, and let us set up the policies in the workplaces and be convincing that we are actually dedicated to the welfare of both men and women in our organizations.
And it all begins tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 10 a.m.
Hotel. 10 a.m.
10 a.m. But we're doing a speed mentoring 9:30, and we're starting. So if you want to be mentored, you want to speak to any of the senior persons out there who have a story to tell, you can 9:30. Labadi Beach Hotel.
Shamima Muslim Al-Hassan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Nick Puniopoku, keep up the good work, even though it makes you so busy we don't see you in the corridors.
Thank you for having us, and hope to see all of you there tomorrow. Excellent.